Welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast. I am Helen Verroux. This podcast is dedicated to help anyone connected to preteens and teens to give them tools, empower and inspire teachers, high school senior leaders, and parents to build the future leaders of tomorrow. We discuss about controversial and relevant topics related to the world of education, the main problems you are facing, and solutions to help you navigate your journey. We want to make a positive change in education by bringing on experts that will give you a different perspective on how you can solve the hardship you are facing today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowering the Next Generation podcast with me, Coach Helen. I am so glad you are listening to these amazing episodes. We have with us an amazing guest speaker. You all know that we are here to empower, to ignite, to develop leaders, and also to create meaningful connections in high school communities. And DJ Dickerson Alejandrino is here with us today. He is a lifelong learner, a speaker who believes that education should be liberating and not limiting. He's also passionate about growth outside the box. DJ explores learning beyond institutional mandates. He's rooted in curiosity, creativity, and life and lived experience. From philosophy to parenting, he helps others reclaim learning as a pleasure-driven path to freedom, not a checklist for approval. I love this word. He talked about freedom, and this is what we are sharing today. What is the importance of interest-based learning? So welcome today with us, DJ.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I really appreciate that you actually are here with us because you have so much to offer, so much expertise. You are a coach, and I just want you to share with the audience because they are educators, senior leaders, people in education who just want a different perspective about how they can actually be empowered, how they can grow, how they can change their life, and also how they can become a better leader and also create meaningful connections in education. So, how did you start your journey as a coach?
So, my journey started from a very long academic career. About 2012, I flunked out of college, and there was no way I was about to tell my mom I didn't really do this. So, for $50, I paid for my commencement ceremony. And I'm sitting there and everybody's giving their congratulations, and it's supposed to be their proud moment, right? Because most of us first generation college kids, and everybody's like, "You're gonna do so well, you're gonna do so well." Nobody's like, "I flunked out. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just trying to buy time." And the summa cum laude gets on stage, and I hear this speech. And it was at this moment that I realized you could take your thoughts, turn them into words, and not only affect the person in front of you, but you could, if done correctly, impact humanity. And I'm like, but what have I done to be worthy of people's time and attention? And I couldn't think about it, right? I was like, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. So I had this elaborate plan. I would be academically disqualified to medical student. Okay. And I wouldn't just be a medical student, I'd be a pediatric neurosurgeon. Okay. Because nobody was going to tell me I didn't earn my stripes and I wasn't sitting there at the academic elite. So 10 years later, okay, I've tried the military, I've gone back to do my classes, I've tried to do sports, work, the works. I finally get into medical school, and the system, okay, the being on the other side of the bed isn't what I thought it would be. And so I struggled with that. And everybody was kind of willing to kind of compromise their values, turn a blind eye to get to a position to be in a place where they could make some actual change and actual decisions. But my questioning was, at what point do you go from turning a blind eye to that being really how you see the world? So I left there and then I wanted to get a PhD because if I wasn't going to be a doctor in a white coat, I was going to be a doctor by credential. But every time we went to do the dissertations, they kept telling me your research isn't going to change the world. If that's the case, what are we doing this for? Right? Isn't the point of being the academic elite doing policy and procedure to make change into the world, to do something that makes an impact? And then when I couldn't get it through the credentialing or the status, I kind of took a step back and I was like, well, what do I actually want to do? I really just want to learn a bunch of things I'm interested in. I want to be able to tell people really cool things that makes them see the world differently. And I want that ripple effect to kind of have an impact to humanity. And so it was traveling the world with my family, kind of seeing that this same cycle was playing out through different countries, different continents. You go to school, you get a high status job, you get income, and then you're trapped in the same cycle. People are depressed, they're stressed, they don't really have any life skills because their life's work is amounted to sitting behind a desk. And that's how it kind of came about is how can you be comfortable with yourself where your thoughts and your actions are kind of led by pleasurable intentions. And that's how I kind of got to start.
Nice. So how old were you when you actually like all this started in your mind when you went to your graduation service? Was it like 16, 15,
So it was my college graduation. I was 22.
22? Yeah.
22.
And then after you actually ended up having a job. So you were in the military. So now what job are you doing exactly? What is your career path?
I mean, I attempted to get to the military. They didn't want me, so they denied me.
It's
But
okay.
currently now I am speaking, coaching, and just kind of existing and living and traveling and being a full-time parent. And to all those who have the parents who are parents all the time and don't have an off button, I salute to you.
Yes, yes. It's a tough journey. And that's the thing. I feel like you went through all this stuff in your life to actually get to the main understanding that we need to live a life purpose led. I feel when you talk about pleasure, for me, I feel it's more like purpose led in terms of not just existing, but really having an accomplished life, a life that really like allow us to be one with our mind, our body, and our soul. And I feel that the system, being an educator myself, the system doesn't allow that to happen in our lives. It doesn't really develop certain skills inside of us so we can grow into self-discovery. So we end up being brainwashed by the system so we could actually finally work for someone, but is it really what we want? And I feel that all of the questions that you actually ask yourself are valuable. It's necessary. And that's why I wanted you to be part of the podcast because you are sharing with the audience that they are not alone. They are not alone in that journey. And did really school help you to choose your career path, the best career path for you right now? Or what would you say?
Um, so I was that student that frustrated the academics. I Tests and papers were my jam. Okay. So if it's about actually grasping and understanding the material, I was your guy. Critical thinking, I was your guy. I like to joke that if I was in education maybe 30, 40 years ago, I would have found a niche, because that's actually when the teachers came with their own lesson plans. The books were supplemental. And I used to get in trouble because I'm like, well, now we're just reading vocab words. Like the same highlighted words you see in the textbooks, I can read too. So why do we got to come here and do it together?
Mm,
And did it help? I have this discussion kind of all the time. If my daughter decided she wanted to be in an academic career, I'd push education. If she wanted to be an architect, a doctor, a lawyer, something where credentials are the barrier to entry, then absolutely. Is it necessary? No. You can train people to do whatever you want them to do. It's just how much money do they have to pay and what are the obstacles you're going to make them jump through for the hazing process to prove that they want it enough. But no, I don't think school doesn't or school doesn't teach conflict resolution. School doesn't teach what it's like to do research and development. School doesn't teach what it's like to supervise. School doesn't teach what it's like to handle emotional regulation and kind of all the basic life skills and necessities that you need to be profitable and prosperous. But it's a great place to babysit. It's a great place to create networking. If you understand that that's what you're going there for, it's a great place to kind of learn to research. But that was before AI, so that's a whole different
Yes,
discussion in
that's
and of itself.
totally. Now AI is taking over. Like I've just watched a video um talking about AI and marketing. We have people that we pay to market our businesses, and now these people, we won't use them as much as before because AI is doing their job. And that's another level of I would say fear, because when even school don't even prepare, that's what I say as to students, they don't prepare them for the future because there are jobs that will not exist anymore. And what we are telling them is to actually just follow the rules, listen and regurgitate information, but we don't teach them really to think, as you say, outside the box and how they can use skills to better their life. So I feel that all of the things that you talked about is very necessary because, especially in the school, in the educational system nowadays, there is a lack, there is a gap between education and academics. So I want you to talk about that.
So I believe academics is the system of feeding information, and education is the process of learning to grow yourself as an individual. If
Mm,
you think about academics, right? Think about the way the semester is set up. I don't know if you guys use semester or quarters, however it is at your
yes, we
school.
do, we do.
I was in a semester system. So you had 16 weeks, and the breakdown never made any sense to me. You spend the first 8 weeks developing how you got from the past to kind of where you are currently. You spend the next 3 to 4 weeks figuring out how to get towards today's problem. And then you have like a week or two before you prep for exams and your possibilities of tomorrow. But what a waste of developing potential move makers and changers, because you only need about 2 to 3 weeks to get from the history of where you at to where you are. You could spend 6 to 7 weeks, like how we are in the problems where we are today, and then you could do 5 to 6 weeks of tomorrow based critical thinking solutions. That means everybody would come out of academics with actual education ready to hit the ground running. Instead, you're already behind. You're learning outdated systems. So then when you get out, you need more academics. They tell you it's education, but you need more academics to still be behind. And so then you finally get all the academics, and then you don't have enough experience.
Mm,
What am I supposed to do with that? And so
yeah.
academics is the profiting system of education. And education is what we need to actually promote again, critical thinking, problem solving, having people be in different situations, understanding, do I actually like to work with my hands, or do I like to be a strategic thinker? Do I like to be research and development? Do I like to solve tensions? Do I like to motivate people? And then you could actually put people in positions, because regardless of what it is that you learn, a managerial position is managerial. I don't care what the system is, you can teach them that. Someone who's on the ground with skilled labor, you can teach them the systems, but if they're good with their hands, they're good with their hands. And the people who resolve conflict and motivate the workplace, it doesn't really matter. So I think academics has it backwards. You pick these wideology fields. Nobody knows if it's going to be profitable, if it's going to be not. You waste a bunch of time and energy not learning the skills behind the actual learning. And then you're always behind the 8 ball. So I think education moves the world forward. Academics slows it down for profit.
Yeah, and I feel as well that it's so interesting because even the adults that are responsible for parents in the schools, because you see the school is a system. So obviously there are parents, there are head of schools, there are educators, there are students. However, what happened is that even those who are in power, who are being assigned to take care of this community, they themselves are struggling as well because they're trying to fit in a system maybe does not really work for them, and it's really sad because it's not about this system doesn't allow people to really grow and discover their giftings, discover who they really are, and it's going to be a cycle. We can talk forever about the system. It will always be there. This is what you had, like people were telling you, and it's okay. Now, for me, I'm someone that is more into becoming a change agent. What do we do differently? What can we do to ignite education? Why are we waiting on the government to do certain things when we, as change agent, we can create something different that can bring ignite inspiration to students, to parents. However, it requires a group of people working together and collaborating together, not just people doing things individualistically. I feel that everybody is doing their own thing for themselves, but don't collaborate. And that's what makes a difference, collaboration. And I love how you talked about how education really helped the person to grow and to change is self-motivation. But how do you deal with that when you have parents or even educators or even students that don't desire really to grow and who are comfortable where they are? I feel like it's as well where you are in your journey of self-discovery and how much you want more, because the system has a way as well to stifle us, so we are comfortable where we are and we're not looking for more.
I would say you'd be hard pressed to find an individual who doesn't have a few set of topics that they absolutely love learning about. The challenge is we have limited what we feel is appropriate to promote in learning, right? Everybody needs to know the states and the capitals or the ongoings of countries and how they came to be of origin. But what about the people who just love bugs, right? What about the people who just love space? What about we've removed the hyper focus for some strange reason, right? Because you have to be a Swiss Army knife about everything. But if some people really genuinely love something, why not let them go as deep down the rabbit hole as they possibly can go? And we just give them structure so that they don't get lost. We make sure they take hygiene breaks. We make sure that they're eating and taking care, sleeping. But an example, when I first got into medical school, the first question they asked when we got in there was, raise your hand if you believe in vaccines. And I'm not saying they do work or they don't work. What bothered me about the way that it was done is you are using social conformity and fear of hierarchy to kind of get people to fall in line from the beginning, right? Understand your place, know where you fit in, don't go outside of that. Same thing with school. Challenge a teacher if you want to. That is the quickest way to have a personal enemy all year, and it's a power dynamic. I remember getting into it with one of my professors, and he was like, "So you think you know more than me?" I'm like, "I hope you know more than me. They're paying you, okay? I'm paying to be here." And so somewhere got lost where teachers are just doing their job instead of that love for figuring out ways to reach all the students in a certain way, right? There used to be a time where, this student got a drawing project because they expressed themselves through artistic expression. This person would write to me because they're just wonderfully, beautifully gifted with words. This person would sing because that is their way to shine. And we got away from that with the generalized, standardized testing. So if you can't reach this mark, you haven't shown proficiency. And I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's become very limiting in the way that we allow young students, adults, parents to express their zone of genius because they all feel they have to conform one way. And
Yeah.
we have to somehow get out of that to let the individual nature of education override the generalized form of academics.
Yeah, and I totally understand that this is great. However, the system doesn't allow that space for creativity. It doesn't allow that space where um, people just come to um, discover a different part of what they love to do. it doesn't give space because the year is so full on with so many things, so many meetings, so many assignments that there is no space for the person, the human fruition itself. So it's great, all of that. Even for me as an educator, I could see that there is so much happening in schools. Now is, I guess, it's only the head of school of the executive head of school or governors or multi-academy trust that can really change and shift things around to give that space for transformation in their schools. So what is the best way to serve interest-based learning?
Allow students to explore without condemning them for following different paths. We have like this weird fixation with making people stop when they get to some arbitrary success point. But if you think about all the random hobbies and activities you've ever kind of done, they give a little bit of learning in your life. You want to learn to swim, you have to learn muscle coordination, body control, breath control. Then you move on to weightlifting, or you want to do mountain climbing, or you want to do artistry, you want to do crocheting, you want to play an instrument. Even if you only do these activities 3 to 6 months, maybe some of them you get into for 5 years, maybe some of them you're absolutely elite, but you're over it. Instead of pushing people to monetize or to reach a certain level of status in an activity, when kids want to quit it, we should let them quit it. They should finish out the current term. I don't agree with letting them just walk away with it because it's hard. But I'm no longer interested in activity. I have a new one. And you'd be surprised because over that period of time, some opportunities and activities blend together that would have never came to fruition if you didn't crochet this year, you didn't play the piano over here, you didn't go on this nature journey here. And so let people find the interest that call them rather than, you know what, I think you would be really good at, which is still great. Suggest to them activities to try and get them out of their comfort zone. But we kind of push children to follow directions and then are surprised when they have their ability to make their own decisions that they don't know how to do it. And so it's just that. Allow kids, you're interested in this, go for that. This is how you try that. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. And then just let them explore. And then from that exploration, their interests will grow and they will evolve as well.
But I feel as well, it's not only the school that are supposed to do that. Parents have to take a part in that journey. And I feel like even parents themselves are lost nowadays. They don't know how to deal with 21st century children. They are not even themselves growing into education, how to become better parents, how to grow, how to read, like reading books about finding, as you were talking about, helping their kids to focus on interest-based learning. They still focus the same pattern that they used to do 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I feel like this is not the job of the school to do that. It's the parent has been giving the child to take responsibility and helping that child to find their path. Now, when the
Right.
parents really grow into understanding themselves, that's when the journey starts. However, we have many parents who are still trying to figure out their own lives. So when they are having kids, it's the same system that happens, and they're waiting on the school to do their part, their job, when it's not happening. I'm saying that because I used to parent, to coach parents as well, and this is the thing, is because I've been an educator for more than 15 years. I've seen the gap, I've seen what is happening, and I feel that it's not only school that is supposed to do that. It's everybody knowing where they are, knowing their responsibility, and really helping that child to find their path. Because every child, every human being has a path to fulfill on earth. And if we are not, as you say, learned enough, educated enough in our own self leadership, our own growth, then we will either break their growth,
Mhm.
hinders their learning, and we won't allow them to self-develop into the leader that they're called to be. Even me, I love talking about the concept of leadership. Leadership is paramount in parenting, is paramount in schools, and most people don't know how to develop the gift of leadership within them because they have never
I
been taught that it is possible.
I agree, but if you look at the way school has been promoted, it was the central authority, right?
Yeah.
Your kid is learning this, your kid is doing that. A lot of times, parents are shunned for speaking against the way the schools are learning. Oh, you just think you're better than everybody else. But I agree, we need a community, a collaborative effort to teach people education starts at home.
Yes.
Education finishes at home. At the
Yes.
same time, these kids are actually at school far more than they are at home.
Yeah.
Because my experience in America is they go to school at 7:30, they get out at 3:30. So you're doing 8 hours a day at school, 5 days a week. So that's where they're at. That's where they're getting the majority of the time. Parents are exhausted, which I understand. It's this hustle culture of you got to work to survive and
That's it.
survive to
Yes.
live.
That's it.
But there's so much more life than that. And when the parents kind of lock in and realize like your baby's not going to be a baby for long, and then you don't understand who that young adult is becoming because you really don't know them because you haven't taken a liking to their interest. You've shunned it because I was in a library one time and this kid is reading all sorts of comic books. And because he wasn't reading the books the mom thought he should be reading, she punished him by not allowing him to read. That is the
Wow.
opposite of what you want to do. He's taken an interest in reading, but he
Yes.
wasn't reading the way you envisioned him reading, the way you can brag about him reading, and now it's no longer an accomplishment. And I think that's what we have to kind of fundamentally understand that education happens when you're interested.
Yes.
Because if you got a kid who loves numbers, they're easy to teach math. If you've got a kid who loves words, they're easy to teach to read and write. But do the opposite. Have a kid that hates numbers, try to teach them math. It is a pain, but they like money, right? So teach them about money. When I used to tutor math students and everybody swore they couldn't do algebra, then we started talking about how much money they have for the month, who owes them, where is it going. And all of a sudden, okay, it was almost calculus. So when it's something that actually interests them, the way the brain works and the way we're wired, dopamine is one great way to make education fascinating and stick.
Yes. And I feel as well it's important as educators or even just knowing the student that you're dealing with. Sometimes they are not good at your subject, and it doesn't mean that they're stupid, doesn't mean that they can't do. It's just that it's okay. They're doing their best, but you need to see the light inside of them and direct them to the thing that they love more, they love doing more. So, what is your last word of encouragement to any parents of preteens and teens, to any senior leaders, any educators, to really help those students to really develop themselves? What would you tell them? What is the space that they need to actually bring in their school to give space to human flourishing and interest-based learning?
So when it comes to the educators, what was it that made you passionate about teaching the next generation to love learning and to tap into that and to not forget that? Because too often the rigors of the job become what you focus on more, and that detracts from the teaching.
Mm,
Your goal was to empower and impact future generations far beyond yourself. And you can do that one of two ways. It could be through the love of education or through the hatred of academics. And I would empower you to do it through the love of education because that lasts far longer than the hate of academics will.
So thank you so much, DJ, for being with us today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you're an educator and you want to really gain clarity on the next path for your life, the next level of your life, I encourage you to join my free masterclass, which is a masterclass that will help you to gain clarity on how you can unlock your message to the world. So I will put the link on the comment section. I see you in there for the next episode. So thank you, DJ, for coming with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and make sure you connect with us on Instagram at The Keys for Success. Check also my Linktree and become an affiliate of the Success Guide for Teens Academy, a program that will empower your school community as a parent, teacher, and high school senior leader. Do not hesitate to reach out, comment, and share. Until then, see you in the next episodes.